It's very easy for block chords and arpeggios to get boring really quick. But with the slight adjustments that I'm going to show you, we can add more flavor, texture, emotion, or whatever you want to call it, to your pads and arpeggios. Now, I recently made a series of shorts on how to build seventh chords, and if you're not familiar with seventh chords yet, you may want to take a moment and go and watch those before continuing on with this video. So this little tip has to do with taking advantage of chords that share notes. And for this example, I'm going to use one of my favorite video game songs of all time, Ice Cap Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I'll start by playing the chord progression for you. Now, let's add the melody. What really calls my attention here is the melody creating an add 9 chord. The second chord in our progression is an A flat major. However, the melody hits that chord with a B flat. If you recall, a triad is built by stacking 3 notes together in a sequence of thirds. A seventh is stacking 4 notes together, and a ninth is stacking 5 notes together in a sequence of thirds. But we're not playing an A flat 9, we're playing an A flat add 9, which means we're not playing the seventh. So, what does this have to do with your pads and arpeggios? You'll remember I said we want to take advantage of shared notes between chords. And while there is a B flat in our G minor, our B flat major, and our E flat major chord, our C minor chord and our A flat major chord do not have a B flat in them. So, we're going to take a note that's in 3 of the 5 chords within our progression and see how we can fit it into the ones that don't have it. We already talked about adding a B flat to our A flat major chord in order to create an add 9. So how do we fit a B flat into a C minor chord? We make it a C minor 7. So now B flat is in every chord within our progression. Let's turn it into a pad. So I've gone ahead and written out our chord progression in a MIDI clip here in Ableton, and you can see I went ahead and I spread out the notes so our thirds in our chords are an octave up, making a more open voicing, except for here our E flat chord is inverted. And I'm going to go ahead and play this for you first. So as it is, it sounds pretty and ethereal, but we're going to go ahead and add our B flat to the top, and we're going to just drag it out over the entire clip. And now let's give it a listen. So adding that little extra layer gives this progression a little more harmonic beauty. It takes up more space on the frequency spectrum. If you only have this and maybe your melody going, it could be a good way to fill the high end of your mix. So I went ahead and created the melody here from this song, and we're going to go ahead and listen to them together and see how they sound. Okay, it still sounds pretty good. And for those of you who are also fanboys of Sonic the Hedgehog or Sega Genesis in general, there's a really cool plugin out there called RYM 2612. It is an emulation of the original YM 2612 chip that was found in all of the Sega Genesis consoles. And you can download this from like Plugin Boutique or something, and they even have a complimentary plugin that will take the original files from the Sega Genesis and rip all of the sounds into their separate individual sounds and let you drag and drop them into the RYM 2612. So you can actually recreate all of those originals or take them and use them however you want to use them. Let's say instead of wanting to use pads, you want to create an arpeggio. You can do the same effect of keeping that note going all the way across the top. I went ahead and I just changed the preset on my track here. I kept the same exact MIDI clip and threw an Ableton arpeggiator on there, and this is what we ended up with. That also sounds pretty cool. It's got that repeating B flat at the top of each arpeggiation, and it kind of brings everything together. So when you're playing around with chord progressions, try adding sevenths and ninths when you can. They help create more color, and they create a sense of tension and release throughout the progression. For example, I'm going to use the same technique of playing the same note throughout our chord progression, but this time in a very popular major chord progression. Now, I have to say, you shouldn't do this just for the sake of doing this. You want your music to convey a message, and if adding a seventh or a ninth to your chords makes it kind of sound out of character for what you're going for, just don't do it. But get creative when you can. Challenge yourself to try new chords and new chord progressions in your songwriting sessions.